Yeah, this is a doozy.
Yeah, well, season of death.
Yeah.
Season of death, you say?
Hi, friends.
Howdy, y'all.
Hello and welcome.
And welcome to Muppet Sex and Trauma. I'm Sara Ezzat. I make the Fat Culture Critic videos on YouTube.
I'm Josh Gosdin, and I chew the ballistic missile submarine Red October.
And I'm Zylla Black. I run the YouTube channel Zylla's Athenaeum.
Welcome back, Zylla. We did indeed call you in for a the trauma instead of the post-trauma.
for your request, yes.
More action, less mourning.
A lot of action, a lot of really good action.
Yeah, this is especially the second episode. I love this one.
Mm-hmm.
Into the Lion's Den. Part 1 was written by Richard Manning and directed by Ian Watson. Part 2 was written by Rockne S. O'Bannon and directed by Rowan Woods. Having decided to take the fight to Scorpius and negotiated safe passage by means of spicy friendship bracelets, John and the crew arrive at Scorpius's command carrier. John and Aaron test out the bracelets, and as advertised, they do indeed sync his pain receptors to Scorpius's. When one is harmed, so is the other. In addition to the bracelets, John has Harvey's assistance, giving him guidance and masking all signs of deception. He is as ready as he could be for this mission. As to everyone else, Jewel and Chiana are here because there is simply nowhere else to go. Dargo and Rigel have added some conditions for their assistance from the Peacekeepers. John also negotiates for Talon to be retrofitted for his safety and for Crace to work on the project. And now, with the assistance of Kokura Strappa, John sets about assisting with the wormhole research. Or pretending to, at least. Despite Scorpius's joviality, the mood on the ship is tense and hostile to our crew. Both Aaron and Crace are confronted by ex-girlfriends. Aaron's reunion is painful and continues to be. Crace's ex at least appears to be loyal, despite being asked to spy, but it's unclear. She might be playing him, or he might be playing her. But someone who isn't playing around is Relgic, a particularly unpleasant lieutenant with a dislike for Luxons and a dim-witted friend with a funky arm axe. After his run-in with dim-witted funky arm axe man, Dargo decides to take Rigel, Chiana, and Jewel back to Moya. But soon after they arrive, they are attacked and captured by an entirely new set of Peacekeepers. Introducing Commandant Mother, Ma'am, Mistress, Greza. We have a new baddie, and she's serving, She's serving Chamberlain. She's got an appeasement plan for the Scarans, and Scorpius is in her way. And that's not a good place to be. She apparently has his Mivonks in a vice. At least until John appears and holds a gun to her head and tips the balance of things. Never mind, she'll be back. And in the meantime, she's left a little treat for Relgic, a secret communicator, by which she suggests that he take good care of Scorpius through John. And so John and Aaron find themselves wandering into an ambush with Relgic in a room of stored CGI fireballs with jetpacks. John survives the fireball jetpack adventure, but with the pressure mounting, Scorpius decides that John needs a little extra motivation. And he has just the thing. He shows John that he knows where Earth is. And he could get there in 60 years if he needs to, and he would keep John alive just long enough to see it fall. Now are you motivated? Oh yeah, John is motivated enough, alright. He'd been wavering as to what to do exactly with Scorpius's research, but now he knows what must be done. They must blow up the command carrier. Moya's crew were taken aback, but they agree. The Peacekeepers cannot wield wormhole weapons. No one can. But this is a busy ship. They need to find a way to destroy it while saving the people on it. John turns to Crace to ask if it can be done. He thinks it's possible, but he needs some time. As John ponders the implication of his decision, the wormhole knowledge begins to unlock in his mind. and he might be on the verge of actually solving this. Meanwhile, in the role of Judas Iscariot, we have Bylar Crace. He's turning on the crew in exchange for a pardon and for talent, or at least so it appears. While Dargo, Rigel, Jewel, and Shiana are recaptured once again, Crace hides Aaron and fills John in on his plan. There is only one way to absolutely take out the command carrier and allow its crew time to escape. Crace and Talon will starburst inside the ship. John asks where would they rendezvous afterwards, but there won't be a rendezvous. No one survives starburst in an enclosed space. Talon will have a hero's death. But to pull this off, Crace needs John to distract Scorpius, and so it's time for John and Scorpi to take a wormhole joyride. On their return, Crace delivers his very last diva monologue, and exits with the line, Talon, Starburst. And now the race is on to get everyone off the rapidly imploding command carrier. But there is one more thing. Strappa. An imploding ship may not be the best moment for a lecture on scientific ethics, but Strappa is a fast learner, and he sees the flaw in John's plan. There are two places where the wormhole knowledge still exists. John's mind and his own. John has pledged to carefully guard his knowledge. Strappa chooses to destroy his, and voluntarily gets in the Aurora chair. Job done. There really is nothing left, except for a dramatic face-off with Scorpius. Will he take revenge for what John has done? Will he attack Earth? No, he sees no use in that, and he releases John from the spicy friendship bracelets and turns away into the fire. Later on Moya, the exhausted crew contemplate their future. So, thoughts?
Well, I
Zylla.
enjoyed how they played up that homosexual tension between John and Scorpius. Like John even made
Yeah.
kissy faces at him. It was really funny.
Yeah.
Not to mention Scorpius's response to John being in pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there was a lot of homosexual tension going around. Is it pretty sure that Aaron ran into an ex-girlfriend?
Yeah, that seemed
That
pretty
was
clear.
like, yeah, flatly just gay.
I mean, they didn't
Yeah.
say it, but
Sometimes the subtext is pretty much text. I mean, especially when
Yeah.
it's mirrored with Crace's ex-girlfriend. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. Everybody calling Grace Bylar was kind of fun this episode. But that's not the point at all, Josh. This episode was amazing. This episode was amazing. This two-parter, this whole saga was amazing. I see what they were saving the budget for, with all of the everything in this episode, and just like
the CGI
my
fireball
goodness.
jetpack room.
Yeah. And we're gonna build this amusement park of a set and then blow it up. It was great.
A lot of that was redressed Talon sets to just kind of add the scale.
Really?
Yeah.
That's kind of impressive because it really
It
did
really
not
is, yeah.
look like it.
Yeah. I mean, they did a lot with what they had, and
They sure did.
yeah, it's helpful to have a unified aesthetic for your spaceships.
Mm.
It is, and it's also helpful to have. What did you say one time? It was like a football field-sized warehouse they were working with. They just kept building sets and then tearing it down, and then building and then tearing it down.
Yeah, I mean that's what you do. And yeah, the water and stairs was a thing they could apparently only do in one shot. Just wow.
That was the only take they got to do that.
That is
Yeah.
pretty epic.
Like that level of pyrotechnics and water and everything. Like, yeah, that's a thing on a TV budget. That's a hell of a thing on a TV budget. You're not going to get to do that twice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they knew that actor could pull it off, so
Apparently, he discovered his boots were a little thin. The moment to discover that, but yeah, like, yep, he Yeah, that he pulled it off.
That was fantastic. And like I was commenting on it before we started, but the score, and they hired a choir. It was
Yeah.
just
I
giving.
wanted to look up the music. I wanted to find out what it was because I think they were singing in Latin. I didn't catch a lot of it.
It was giving
But
Hunt for Red October.
Yeah, I'm afraid I don't have any details on that. If anyone of our listeners does, we would
I'd
love to
love to
hear it.
know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll see if I could do a little more research for their, season wrap up because there are some, uh, some discussions with the composer, um, who has been, uh, just doing sterling work the whole time.
And as dramatic as it is to have, a choir chanting in what sounds like Latin, whether it is or not, uh, like that seems so over the top. Like if you just say that, but like it really seamlessly integrated into the setting. So I
It
was
really did.
impressed.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah,
impressed. It was good work.
yeah. I think anything less wouldn't have been enough.
I'm gonna talk about Star Trek to link it back to Farscape because it's what I do. Uh, there was a composer in Star Trek: The Next Generation named Ron Jones, and he, for the classic, epic, penultimate, not penultimate, amazing two-parter, The Best of Both Worlds, he hired a choir for that two-parter soundtrack, and he got a lot of pushback from the producers on that. And they're like, "Man, what are you doing? Like, it just calm down. It's just a TV show." And Ron Jones's rebuttal was like, "No, this is the apocalypse. Like, this is as dire as it gets on this show. So we need to go all in." And that's what it feels like was happening with this composer in this episode. Like, this is the culmination of 3 seasons worth of Sturm and Drang. And to not, like you said, Zilla, to not have a choir would have felt like underselling it.
Yeah, like even as patchily as I've seen this, this was the culmination of the relationship between John and Scorpius, which has been super intense in a lot of really dire and intimate ways.
Mm-hmm.
And that moment of fracture being paired with the moment of disintegration of the ship and the doom choir, like it just works. Just works.
So good.
The composer, by the way, is a man named Guy Gross.
Knocked it out of the park, guy.
Yeah. He's other than Farscape, he's known for doing Priscilla, The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
That's so cute.
So yeah. Yeah, no, his work is always amazing. Like we called it out in Revenging Angel, how well he
Mm-hmm.
did the Looney Tunes homage. And that to also be able to pull this off, like it feels like proper Italian opera.
Yeah.
And that's what you need for Scorpius, you know, the end of all of Scorpius's hopes.
And they're like teetering on the edge of annihilation one way or the other.
Mm-hmm. And the water flowing and the one plume of fire that just, oh, so good.
Yeah, speaking of the fire special effects, I do want to call out the one special effect that I just did not. Like it just took me right out, which was Henta's death.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think I said aloud at the moment, "Oh, that's gruesome," and then it kept showing her burned corpse that didn't look very real at all. I'm like, you don't need to do.
Apparently the original that Dave Early made was a bit too much.
There was
Where is
more.
it? Dave Elsey had designed the burn makeup for Henta's death. The original version was more graphic, and had suggested that as she burned, she start moving towards Aaron and the camera. And that I think that this in this case less is more. And like I think more makeup would have been just like
Yeah, I didn't really want it to be more. I wanted it, in fact, to be less.
Yeah, I would rather it was it was apparently quite edited on the BBC, and I think that's probably a good decision because we didn't really need that.
We really need that. It was the burn makeup was such that I actually thought we were getting some kind of a reveal that she wasn't a Sebastian. But then I just figured, oh no, that's because Aaron doesn't react that way at all.
Yeah.
So it's just like, oh okay, no, that's just burn makeup. That's really, really burny.
Yeah, and we could have sold the whole thing with Claudia Black's performance because we know that she is incredible. She could have. We didn't need more than fire and screaming and oh shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it could have all been happening out of focus in the foreground with Claudia's reaction and just yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of the acting, like, whoa. Okay, so normally the acting in this show is great, but this was even better. Like they were really in this. Even oh, I lost his name. The spiky head man, the scientist.
Oh,
Strappa. Get there. Like I've only seen like little flips of him, but like he was so on fire. Like the scenes, but
not literally this time.
Not literally in this case, but like the scenes just with him and John doing the wormhole stuff, and like how excited he is about the science and how much he understands John's emotional split there over like, do I really want to give you this? Like, and like it's very clearly emoting of like, I understand this is hard for you, but the science, look at the science.
But it's so cool. Yeah, he was a little.
The actor's name is Danny Adcock, and yeah, he's such a great, funny little guy.
And it was genuinely poignant when he decided to destroy his own knowledge.
Yeah.
A lot. So this episode had a lot of parallelism with the last time we were on the command carrier. And one of the things that I didn't expect was the return of the Aurora chair.
Yeah, I didn't really have context for the Aurora chair, but it wasn't hard to figure out.
The thing here of getting it to the point where John has to put someone else through the thing that traumatized him. That's quite a moment.
A lot of shared pain again in this episode. The inch bracelets being metaphorical.
Right. So we
spicy friendship bracelets. I like that.
I wonder how many people out there will get what I'm referencing. So where shall we start to dig in? Dargo had his collarbone bolts removed. That is
that's huge.
Yeah.
I didn't ever expect that was going to happen. I just thought that those were like always going to be there.
It's quite a way to start this episode that is so much about coming back to where your trauma started and, making active decisions. And so here we have, he's come back to the Peacekeepers, which he has always vowed not to do because he never wanted to be captured again, even though he's captured again twice in this episode.
He's captured all the time. That ship sailed a long time ago.
But
it does seem to hit him particularly hard when they're in the cell. Like he's really shut down.
Him and Rachel.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot that they take a moment to that, but yeah, both him and Rigel come back with specific requests, information, and to have this surgery done. And I think, it's just a good sort of metaphor for what they're happening, and also this like closing a loop for Dargo. Tiana We have a bit of Gianna's precognition coming into use this time.
Mm-hmm.
Although it wasn't very useful because
It was a little of the moment, yeah.
yeah, by the time she figured out that they should starburst away, it was a little too late. So how do we like our new villain?
Commandant Graza? Is that
Graza?
Graza? Graza? I don't know. Seems a little flat, which I guess is an ironic way to describe her.
Yeah, I was gonna
considering
say
even in the episode, somebody refers to her. I think it was John as Commandant Cleavage.
Yes.
You know, I don't really need to see her entire breastbone. It's really okay.
You know, couldn't hurt.
Couldn't hurt.
You just want to be sure. You know, better safe than sorry.
See, the reason why I like it, other than the fact that she's hot, which we'll acknowledge that she's hot, is that she stands out, and in the way that Scorpius stands out because he's something other than Sebastian. She stands out because we have the Sebastians don't do gender. You know, or if they do, it's like everybody's masculine. Like, you know, all of the other women peacekeepers we see either have their hair like, well, she does have her hair short too, but you know, they're all very austere. They're all in, you know, very covered up uniforms, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we know that the peacekeepers don't do femininity at all. And yet we have, and then
this lady, it does feminine. She does.
She does femdom.
She's femming.
she is
femming before your very eyes.
With that makeup too. Mm-hmm. The silvery eyeshadow, I thought that was very striking.
Yeah. So and to me, it doesn't feel exploitative. Or maybe I don't know. It
feels like a power move. Like exactly. That's what that is because she's bearing her most vulnerable aspects and saying, "You can't touch me."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and she even gets to exercise that when she shoves Regic against the wall, and like he's got his hands up like this while she's like strangling and also slipping him a comm. But
I did think that was a particularly inept comm slip. Like that they could have practiced that a few more times.
And then he had no chill about it at all. Like he didn't even wait to be in privacy.
Yeah, he just like as soon as it was pretty funny.
Yeah, he wasn't much above dim-witted funky axe man. But sometimes you need some dim-witted
funky axe man was quite dim-witted. Like, what did he think was going to happen?
Yeah. Tripping and falling on your own funky axe is the way you expect funky axe man to die.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But no, I'm interested to learn more about her because that was the point at which it really felt like we were, again, a lot of parallelism, a lot of full circling between this episode and what was it, Family Ties back in season 1,
mm-hmm.
where we were on the command carrier the first time.
That was the Gamic base, but same difference.
We blew
that up. Now we're blowing this up.
Yes, but no, there was the episode where we went to the command carrier, and Grace, Rigel, and Scorpius had lunch together and all that kind of stuff. Or unless that was on the Gamic base.
Oh yeah, right. They were on the Gamic base, and then they got onto the command carrier. You were right, and I was wrong.
There it was. Well, it was bound to happen. The odds of large numbers is bound to happen at least once. In that episode, we finally got our climactic confrontation with our season villain, only for him to immediately be usurped by Scorpius.
Mm-hmm.
And in this episode, we finally get our climactic confrontation with our season villain, only for him to be immediately usurped by Commandant Cleavage. And it was really interesting to the way that this whole story was just kind of like unfolding on, on itself, and it didn't feel repetitive. It didn't feel like it was retreading. It felt like music. It felt like we were going back to a similar theme,
It rhymes.
similar motif. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I liked it. I enjoyed it.
And one thing about this pair of episodes is that we've had so long to get used to Harvey that Scorpius has almost become sympathetic. But in this, he's actually himself being kind of sympathetic, right? Because he's actually like, no, give them everything they want.
Mm-hmm.
Don't fuck with this. It's just give them everything they want. They're immune.
Yeah, he's not like, I'm evil. He's like, I have a thing I want. I will do anything to get the thing I want, and it's revenge on the Karen. And he's utterly, completely devoted and ruthless to that end. But nothing else matters except that. He's not going to be cruel for cruelty's sake. He just wants the one thing.
He's not cruel for cruelty's sake, and he also doesn't hate them the way that a lot of the peacekeepers do.
He doesn't. And I mean, even that gets subverted a little bit when we learned about the fucking Luxon alliance with the peacekeepers. What?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's
like kind of wild.
Scenes, right? 2 scenes after it was Axeman and Reject hanging out in the bar together, and they were like, "Oh, Luxons! I hate Luxons. I'd love to wipe their smiles off their faces." And that was a terrible accent, but they were like being all good and racist about it. And then the Luxon shows up, and Commandant Graza is like giving this Luxon ambassador respect and space and letting him talk and all this other stuff. And so it's like, yeah, the higher up that you get in the peacekeepers, the less it's about racial superiority, the more it's just about power and control.
Which,
yeah. Plus,
realistic.
There's always someone who will collaborate.
Mm-hmm.
But it's I think it's very interesting that Scorpius really is treated like one of the main characters. Like he's one of the crew for most of the episode, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not like everything is clean and happy, but he seems to be getting the same kind of interactions that we sometimes used to see with Grace.
With Bylar. When John called him Bylar, like my eye twitched. I was like, that's weird. That's so weird.
Yeah, they reached that point, one of them's gonna die.
Yeah.
So speaking of Scorpius, I love the Harvey moments we have in this. They're some of my favorite moments in the series. Took your hand off.
Checkers.
I love that they were playing through a bunch of old board games and stuff. They're playing, and Scorpius, Harvey was consistently winning because John was so conflicted with himself, and but like we're in this sort of black and white army camp, like feeling like everything is about to end, and they're playing chess like it's the seventh seal or something.
Mm-hmm.
But then they move on to checkers and go fish like it's Bill and Ted.
It's very John that the game gets simpler and simpler as they go on.
Yeah, and chess has been a bit of a theme. But also like chess is a thing that is always used in these things to be like, look how intelligent and sophisticated our characters are. So how about checkers? No, how about go fish? Yeah. I could have done with like, how many more games could we have gotten John and Harvey playing within a black and white war movie? And just like, yeah, it is charming.
Uno. Yeah, it was very cute. And I kind of wondered because we did see that Scorpius has a John in his head at one point, and I kind of wonder what's going on with that the whole time. Like, I wish we had gotten a little bit of that.
Yeah, well, I think we did get the implication that John sort of killed himself, sort of like took himself out with all the information. But we did have it referenced in that John now has all of that backstory.
Now, there's a lot in this that gets concluded in this episode, and then there's a lot that's still left open ended. And Scorpius's nature, continued presence, like I don't know if he made it off the command carrier or not, but something tells me that, despondent or not, Scorpius wouldn't just resign himself to death. But like, there's a lot of open-ended questions that are still out there. And then also, I wasn't quite expecting, but I guess it made sense as I was thinking about it. I wasn't quite expecting the episode to wrap up with the breaking of the fellowship implication. That now everybody's thinking about going their separate ways, but they've all been pardoned at this point, and Scorpius is no longer pursuing them, so there's not necessarily a reason that they need to stay together. So, like, I guess it makes sense.
And sometimes the tragedy heralds. What was it that they said the end of last season? Sometimes, death heralds a parting of ways. Yeah, and the death of Talon, I think, is the real one that most of them are mourning. The tragedy of Talon. One of the moments that I love in this episode is when John goes over to Moya to explain what's happening to Pilot and Moya. He recognizes that is the thing that needs to happen, and just like the way he handles Pilot and like touch the things you can do when you have a puppet and not a CGI character is actually touch to offer comfort. And Pilot says Talon was always due for a violent end. This at least is a noble one.
Yeah, it was very powerful to see Pilot distraught.
Whatever Pilot is sad, I am sad.
Yeah, and that he and Moya would rather die than be captured again.
Yep.
Yeah. So yes, we definitely have some meditations on what it means to these people to be captured again. And this is Jewel's first time at the sharp end with the peacekeepers. So she's like, but they don't have anything on us but our intentions. Yeah, and we get
that matters.
Yeah, right, exactly. Gianna gives us an ACAB again. Is they aren't into justice; they're into enforcement.
The whole theme of Erin confronting her ex and her past. And I think, what's it, Jewel that asked Erin what must have been horrible growing up inside these walls, and Erin's like, it wasn't horrible.
Yeah, because
it was home.
It was all she knew at the time. She was still in the cave.
But when Erin looks around, she sees the love that she had with Henta. She sees herself as a child in this child, and she's offering gentleness to a child, and Henta's response is, don't make her soft.
Right.
She offers, when she and Henta talk about like why Erin didn't come back, and Erin's trying to explain in the short time that Henta allows her, like there are worlds beyond these narrow walls, and Henta can't hear that.
Yeah.
because when you grow up buying into the system, when you live and breathe this kind of system, a crack in the walls is the same thing as your whole world falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron tries to say, have you ever considered if we're fighting for the wrong cause? And that's not something Henta can even contemplate.
Yeah, she goes, nope.
Yeah.
But she does make a little bit of a dent when she says, what about the wrong leaders?
Yeah. Part of the reason I think, well, why the peacekeepers are suspicious of Scorpius as a leader is because of that racism.
Mm-hmm. It's all very sad.
It is.
It's a look inside the walls that people build for themselves and then buy into.
Yeah, and I feel like not only was Henta's death visually takes us out of it, I feel like we could have had a better ending for that character.
Yeah, it's a bit of a missed opportunity for
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
either a dramatic break or a dramatic refusal.
Yeah. And it's a cop out to have it just be like just the fire comes out of nowhere and gets her.
Mm-hmm.
It's so we ran out of time in this episode.
Which, to be fair, it was a two-parter and every second was packed with things. Like, we haven't even talked about Grace protecting his ex by hurting her.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah.
That whole thing was complicated.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah.
Because he never found out that she was conspiring against him.
Well, was she or wasn't she? That is the question.
I tend to go with she was. We'll unpack the question. I tend to go with she was because we never got a complimentary scene where. So we got her showing up, and then her and Grace banged off camera, and then we got her chatting with Braca, and Braca's like, "Does they suspect anything?" And she goes, "No, he believed me completely." And they both go, and then we never get a complimentary third beat after that, where Grace, asks her, like, you're compromising yourself and putting yourself in this position. And she goes, I made them believe. Like, there was nothing like that. So I tend to believe she was conspiring against him for real.
I actually don't think that there's much of a contradiction. In terms of like a character in that position, she probably believes that she can get him back. She's not conspiring against him. She's trying to fix it.
I like that.
She's conspiring for him.
Right. Like, I don't think a character in that position would see that. And like, I don't know this character's backstory, but like, given how she seemed to act, she does know him well. She does care about him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And she proposes multiple times that he come back. I don't think that there's any contradiction for her between I want what's best for you and I want what's best for the peacekeepers. I also think that she opened the door if he had said, come with me. Because at one point, he says, my only regret was leaving you behind. And she says, I wouldn't have come with you then.
Yeah.
And like, she opens that door, but I actually thought that was the weirdest thing for her character, because everything else is very consistent with like, I want all of these things to come back together. But I wonder if she would have gone if that had been an option. So it's interesting that they opened that door.
They did a lot for a character that has never been set up before.
Oh, really? I assumed that there was some backstory with that. No,
there was a whole different woman who was also a lieutenant that also had feelings for him that he snapped the neck of right before he defected the first time.
Whoa!
And so when she popped up and looking very similar in this episode, when she popped up, I was like, I had to be like, wait a minute.
Yeah, It was a little. Teague was a bit before the defection because that was Black Magic. So it was early
Yeah.
in the first season, and then so I don't know if they built this whole relationship in the time between snapping Lieutenant Teague's neck and doing the thing. And also, it's interesting that considering we know the peacekeepers don't do relationships, but we've seen that they still do have relationships, even though
Right.
they're not
You
supposed to.
you don't talk about that.
Yeah, because
You
we
don't.
yeah
They do situationships.
yes, they are encouraged to not have emotional ties, but they can recreate whenever they want. Um that's the peacekeeper line. And yet we have seen multiple people actually have relationships and try and pretend they aren't relationships. And you know, no one is going to tell me that Braca doesn't have an attachment to Scorpius that is
Real gay. It's real gay.
yeah.
Aw.
And Henta is clearly ex-girlfriend, even though they
Oh
never
yeah.
say that.
100%.
And they may never have said it in the relationship, but that bond was clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, another person who we have never had any setup for, but it makes sense. I like that it's a woman, not just because, it was bisexual, but also because, like, it makes her even more of a mirror for Aaron.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we've had her talk about the ex that was kind of a precursor to Crichton. But to have an ex that is a mirror to who she once was, that she can try to save.
Yeah.
Even though,
And
yeah.
ultimately fail.
And the little
Unfortunately.
kid as well, as to see herself in a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
Though it seemed like there was a lot of closure for Aaron this episode.
Yeah. And hard won closure. Because yeah, I love that we end with her silence. Companionable silence, but silence and grieving. And her goodbye to Grace was also silent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was a really interesting parting moment
Mm.
where she reaches up and pats his cheek and says, do a good job, essentially. You got
Yep.
this. How about that?
Yeah, it's so there's so much said in the unsaid.
The less said about that particular love triangle, the better. But also, that was one final letting go of who she used to be, saying goodbye to Grace.
Is it a love triangle if two people have zero interest in the other?
So it's a love. It's a love lambda. That's the Greek letter. Just the
Yes.
okay. It's a love lambda. There it is.
Yeah, and yet he was, because of that he was there for all of her relationship with Talon John. So yeah, he means something to her. What exactly it is?
He means more than one thing to her, I think, and I think that's part of it. Is that there's a lot of layers.
Speaking of layered interactions, I actually really felt some of her reacting to Moya John with the memories of Talon John. Like that moment where she is just looking at him like there are 50,000 people on this ship. You can't just kill it. And she's thinking like, is this the John that I know or not?
Yeah.
How different is he really?
Yeah, and she talks about Talon John to Moya John. She says, when John is wavering and unsure, she's like, "My John died for this."
Yeah, I caught that.
I love that interaction. And he's like, "Yeah, but this is my ship." And yeah, he didn't have the information I have. It's just it's a great sort of character thing of what would another version of yourself do in this moment. Yeah.
That, and I mean, it kind of, I don't know, there's something interesting there about decision making, because he's gripped with indecision because he's the only John. He can't have it both ways anymore, because another John could make another choice and they could go off and do their own things and see which one is better and see which one works or whatever. But yeah, we're all just singular beings making choices in the wide universe. I did have one. I had one gripe with this episode, other than charred ex-girlfriend, and that was some of their nomenclature when they were talking about the interstellar politics and where Earth was and all that kind of stuff. This entire show, and in the opening credits, even they've used the word universe. They're in some distant corner of the universe, and so it's been an intergalactic thing. But in this episode, they're using the word galaxy all the time. It's the Skarns could overrun the entire galaxy, and I was like, galaxy? I thought we were dealing with universal threats here. The scale seemed to shrink a little bit in a way that was a little jarring.
First this galaxy, then the universe.
Nobody said that in the newsreel, though. And then Earth being so close was also a little jarring. I wanted Earth to be 4 or 5 galaxies away, but maybe that's just me as a fan wanting things.
How dare you, as a fan, want things?
It's one of my biggest failings as a fan when I want things.
I think that's totally fair, but also I love the reveal. When Scorpius revealing Earth to John.
I did appreciate that as far as like a stakes raiser, for sure. Like the possibility that it is possible not just to find Earth, but for the bad guys to find Earth.
Actually, one thing I thought was, again, just like a small missed opportunity. I kind of wanted, when John is like, "Are you still going to go after Earth?" I wanted Scorpius to say, "No, I lied. It's like 5 million years away." Or something like that.
That would have been cool too.
Yeah, I found it, but I can't get to it.
Rather than just him being like, "Nah, we're good."
Yeah. I did want to kind of go back to John and Scorpius.
Okay.
And specifically the wormhole trip. And that like, magic carpet, whole new world moment where Scorpius is like, "I've never felt this way before." Like, oh, it was so heartwarming. And like, even though I know that this is like John doing a thing to distract Scorpius, like, it was clearly he chose it because he knew it would make Scorpius happy.
I can show you the wormhole. Shining, spinning thingy. I don't know.
Keep going.
That didn't have legs, but anyway.
There were a few holes in it. Yeah, you're right.
No, just one.
And there it is. Yeah. Some instabilities. Yeah, no. And of course, wormholes are the thing that John is fascinated by, and so Scorpius is acting as kind of a mirror for John in that moment. But in that moment, John isn't interested in wormholes.
But he's also getting pretty good at flying through them. He never did say what the reason was why his module was okay. He just said, "I've got a hunch."
Yeah, I like that, actually.
But
like it lines up with what we already knew, right? Back in whatever the last one that I was here for was. Like the lead up to that. Furlough managed the wormhole runs because she rebuilt his module, right? Like that was a
Mhm.
thing.
Mhm.
So it's not all that surprising in context that his module that doesn't have all of the extra tech is not having the same effects happen in the wormhole.
Although she did build a stabilizer.
Right.
Mhm.
But she didn't build it new shielding or new shape or anything. Like, because one of the things that they were going on about about the tech in this episode was they were using the ship itself as a resonator.
Mhm.
And so like it makes wibbly, like sci-fi logic sense. I'm not gonna claim it makes
Close enough for
scientific
government
sense. But like it makes consistent story sense. The size and shape and composition of a ship would matter because it
In a
matters
wormhole.
for creating the wormhole.
Yeah.
And the fact that it works, that it is a hunch, also works too, because we see how the knowledge works in his brain, like that. I love that the subconscious thing, and that it gets presented with him writing on his hands.
That was interesting.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to seeing where that's going to go, because we're not done with season 3. Like, there's one more episode.
one more episode, and then a whole nother season, and then the mini, then the 2-parter Huey movie.
Also, they did a really good job with the writing on the hand. Like it's really visually striking.
Yeah,
As someone who is professionally, I guess, obsessed with orthography, I just really liked how they chose to present that.
Yeah, I know nothing about science to know if there's any resemblance to actual math stuff.
I mean, no.
I think it was just
it was just symbols in a nice arrangement on his arm.
Yeah.
But the symbols themselves were lovely, and they worked together in a nice visual format. And the fact that he was arranging them in a particular way up his arm suggests a particular type of 3D modeling that you often get in sci-fi stories that involve space travel. I just forgot the name of the series that I was going to tell you about. They're like there's a fairly famous sci-fi book series where one of the sort of key components of learning to pilot well is learning to think about math in 3D because of the way that space works. And so like there's an incident where a character like learns to knit, and she's like making star maps in her knitting, like just making these webs.
That's cool.
And so like that concept of like, okay, it's not just what the symbol is, but it's where on his arm it is and like what it's doing in relation to the other ones. I like that a lot as a visual.
It also gives us some fun moments with Strappa, who is also another mirror for John. In his scientific enthusiasm, our weird little guy.
Aww. Weird little pointy guy.
I just the moment where he's like, yeah, that works well for those who are only listening. I was doing the visual, the face looking at the hand. Like,
I pantomime all the time. We're fine.
Mirrors of mirrors of mirrors. What else do we bits do we want to talk about here? There's just we're running into the perennial problem of it's so good. It's all so good. So good. So good. It leaves us less to talk about than when we can be like, this is what went wrong and here's the problem, and yeah.
Well, the CGI fireball jetpack fight was pretty funny. we'll go with that. That was real nonsensical. It was great, but it was nonsensical.
I also appreciated that the Peacekeepers took the time to build a fucking spa on their ship.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so cool, though. The restoration chamber, is that what they called it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And honestly, those silver robes, I just kind of want one. They're gorgeous.
They were
They
nice.
look really comfy.
It's all great sets, and that's a really great minimal set because it's just like black with some red lines.
Yeah, it's just boxes and platforms.
And yet it feels like a real place, and it feels lived in because it's got this like bathhouse atmosphere.
We're doing spicy friendship bracelets and commandant cleavage, and now we're into bathhouses. I mean,
that may have been intentional. But one thing that I do think it was pretty contrived that the spa mist interferes with their surveillance. Sure it does. Sure it does. All right, fine.
I often have trouble getting cell phone signals whenever I go into my bathhouse. As I'm sitting there surrounded by the Russian mafia, it's hard to dial out.
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
I mean,
I do not have any ties to the Russian mafia.
It's not at all about like whether the tech of it makes sense. It's just like we need an excuse for people to be able to talk freely.
And Grace would know where the places are that the surveillance doesn't work so good. And it's better than having them be in like a broom closet the whole time.
One thing about this show is that they are very free to make anything for anything that they need. Like the writers do this a lot, where on other shows, I feel like they would spend some time trying to figure out, okay, like how does the surveillance work? And so if it functions like this, then what would actually be? Okay, so then we need them to, like, they would just do that. And Farscape writers are like, yeah, let's put them in a spa. And we'll just say the steam interferes with the surveillance. Okay, yeah, sounds good.
By other shows, you mean Star Trek?
I mean, Star Trek, Star Wars, The Expanse. Like, I feel like there would be a lot of
well,
like
the Expanse especially, because that's much closer to a hard sci-fi.
Very hard. It's much harder than even Trek.
Yeah. Grace returning to his own ship.
The slow-mo walk on at the beginning of the episode, and like all of them kind of like moving through the peacekeepers was very, very good, very affecting. And it was very like, yeah, everybody except for Joel, everybody has a very specific and personal tie to not just these people, but these people, this place, this ship.
Jewel is just there to be generally anxious.
And
apparently that's why her hair is red.
To moon over Dargo as well.
Yeah.
I kind of missed that.
I feel like Jules had a crush on Dargo for a few episodes now.
I mean, fair, but,
So if we had the waltz of Chiago, what do we call Jewel and Dargo? Jewel?
Jargo.
Dargo. So, yes, okay. Not so much a waltz, but I don't know what does Jargo feel like? Some kind of condiment?
Pass me the Jargo, would you? The Jargo.
Yes, there is a thing. I think there is a thing that is thinging.
You can turn it into a musical. There is a thing. I think there is a thing. Danny Kaye.
She's definitely. I think she's got the eyes for him, but
who can blame her?
Yeah. But yes, the return to the ship for Grace is interesting. And his tension with Braca versus Scorpius's tension with Braca. It's like there's more than one X in the mix.
That was ex-boyfriends for sure.
That's another piece of the acting that I was just really super impressed by. Of Grace, just when he decides that he's going to, like, he hasn't yet told us or John that this is part of the plan, but he decides to like turn in everybody else as part of getting them out. And it's set up, it's written to look like he's really fucking everybody over. But his acting is so good that like I saw that and I'm like, no, he's not fucking them over. Like, I have no idea. I haven't been watching these people that long, but like I can see how upset he is to be doing this. And I can also see why they might believe him anyway. Like, it was so clear to me how like he had made the decision that he was going to have to give up his life and talents and in order to save what he believed in.
It is quite the arc. I mean, I think it was Jack who at the very, at the end of season 1, like, I want a redemption arc. I want to see him turn to the good. And we had he turned and then he turned and then he turned again and then you think he's turning again and then boom.
Big bada boom.
Yeah. And I do think that there is a trope that is overplayed of redemption through death. Where like a character who sort of shortcuts to redemption by sacrificing themselves. But I feel with Crais it's earned. Because it's such a complicated redemption arc because he's never stopped being a self-involved, selfish drama queen asshole.
Which he admits this episode.
Yes. What he has developed is self-knowledge and also the ability to care about some specific beings other than himself. Talon and Aaron, and and now like he actually is taking a stand for the wider world. He actually is. We saw him in the last couple episodes start to take responsibility for his part in Talon and what Talon has become. He was prepared to leave Talon for Talon's own good. But instead he chooses, and I don't know that he needed to be on Talon to get Talon to Starburst. If he needed to stay on Talon once he'd woken him up and everything. But
I think he did, but I'll go into that in a second.
Yeah, but so I don't know if it was a choice to stay with Talon or just like the choice to be there with Talon for his end. It's been quite the character journey, and it is hell of a death, and he does give it his drama queen best soliloquy before going.
He does.
And it like he gives the full con, from hell's heart I stab at thee, but instead I am in your heart and I intend to squeeze, I'm going to squeeze. Like, just yeah. So he's getting it's very Christ. He's getting revenge and redemption in the same moment. Yeah.
And he cares so much for Talon in that moment.
Oh yeah.
Like, I'm here.
I think that's why he had to be there, because I don't think the Talon would have gone through with it. If Crais had stood away from Talon and tried to tell Talon to kill himself, I don't think Talon would have gone through with it. But Crais being like, this is something we need to do together, I think is what let Talon go through with it. So yeah, I absolutely think he needed to be there.
Certainly narratively he needed to be.
But I was going to say at the very least, character-wise, he needed to be. Talon wouldn't have complied.
Yeah. And of course, we can also look back on Talon's whole arc, which has been a tragedy. he was bred against Moya's will. And in this, to have this conscious ship who is essentially a conscious weapon. And, he lived his life as a toddler and a preteen running around with a gun.
Mm-hmm.
And with the guidance of an emotionally unstable, immature
somebody who kept turning. Yeah.
And then he got a bit of extra guidance and brain input from a not emotionally mature, but like deeply scarred, traumatized mess that is Stark.
Mm-hmm.
And then had part of his brain lobotomized by another deeply traumatized person, and then had more of Stark's brain implanted into him. So, or more of Grace's brain implanted into him. So, yeah, the poor Talon has not had. He just has not had a lot of chances in life, and there was this last
to be betrayed.
Yeah, there was this one last ditch attempt of, can we lobotomize? No, I don't know what they were exactly like. Can they?
It sounded pretty drastic.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, the release trying to take away all of his armaments, and yeah, this last sort of killer cure moment, and then make this choice instead. Yeah.
But my water is empty, or else I'd pour one out for Talon.
F's in chat. Yes, poor Talon. It's amazing. Like we've been able to have all these feelings about this collection of sets and CGI and bloopy bloop noises has become such a whole character that you now are mourning his death.
Reminds me of that lovely Tumblr meme that's like about how humans will personify anything. Like, you give it the humans have adopted the cleaning robot. They taped a knife to it and named it Stabby.
Yes, we have personified the big space whale, who is now the other space whale is now a mother in mourning.
She's having a rough time. I just want to give Moya a snack.
Yeah,
she just deserves a snack, and she deserves head pats.
Yeah,
not in a mobile laser pulse. That looked painful.
No. Or a control collar, or a dead son. Like, none of that.
Yeah. Well, nobody gets a happy life when there are fascists around. You have to fight for every good moment you get.
Party. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Your fight. Yes. As it were, your right to, as you say, party. Ipso facto.
I was fascinated by the naming.
Ooh,
because
okay.
they called it Into the Lion's Den, the two-parter, but then both of the like subtitles were about sheep and wolves. Like, little predator swapping, but okay. Like, but the subtitles were very good, and I kind of just wish that they'd gone with that, because the subtitles, like lambs to the slaughter and then wolf in sheep's clothing, like that really sets up what's happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
In a way that Lion's Den, like, yeah, kind of, but it the metaphors, they clash.
Yeah.
Still, something I thought was fun.
Little cross metaphorication. One of the possibilities for the title of the second one was Abandoned Sheep.
Oh no.
That's pretty good.
That's terrible. I love it.
I think Wolf in Sheep's Clothing is the better title.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm glad that I discovered that the one. I like the abandoned sheep. Yeah. Anything else to say?
Where do we go from here?
Now that is the question. Do you have any predictions as what might be coming up?
Well, a couple of plot threads got set up. Rigel is interested in the current political state of his planet. Dargo found out where Macton is, or was most recently.
Mm-hmm.
Earth is apparently within reach in some form or fashion. Like there's a lot of reasons why the Fellowship is breaking up now, and of course the Fellowship breaking up begs the question of what will next season look like.
Indeed. I love this season. This is one of my absolute favorite. I think it's one of the best plotted and executed seasons of television that I've watched. This season 3, and we have one more episode to go.
I appreciate that they do. It's unusual for me. It's unusual in the American television I've experienced to have the climax, then the denouement as the season finale.
Yeah, I really like that they do that. It gives us a chance to sort of have to divide up the feels, because there's some
feels.
Yeah, there's some feels. I don't think it's a spoiler to say that next episode we might be dealing with some of the feels fallout.
Right, yeah. This next episode's going to be all about fallout.
Yeah.
I admit to having some fascination for what Aaron, John, Moya, and Pilot are going to do, because everybody else seems like they kind of have either a clear next step or, are kind of back to status. But the four of them seem pretty rattled.
Mm.
And I don't know what they're going to do.
Well, would you like to know the title of the next episode?
I would.
Yes.
Dog with Two Bones.
Okay. Not quite as dramatic as I was expecting, but all right.
Oh, it is.
I mean, it could have been Space Sheep.
Yes, exactly.
Well, it's been real.
It's a shame that we don't do titles for the episode for our episodes, because it would have been fun to have some funny episodes and call this one Space Sheep.
Yeah, that's a fixable problem.
Yeah, just at the end of season 4, I think I'll just sort of bring in new titles. No, but I might borrow that for the description I give out on socials for this one. So, what is your favorite part of this two-parter?
So,
I think my favorite is probably the wormhole ride. I think that was just really lovely. Yeah, exactly.
Magic carboat wormhole ride.
There was something really pure in that.
There's too many in the final sequence to name. But I guess if I had to whittle it down to just 3, because that's the best I can do, Sara, it would be Scorpius's slow-mo choral walk through the destroying ship, the absolutely biblical framing of Scorpius and John as everything is destroying around them, their final face-off, and Grace's sacrifice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Scorpius and the stairs is a hell of a thing. I am tempted to go to. I really love the scene with Strappa and we didn't even talk about that really. It's never just science.
Mm. That was a good one too.
Yeah, I think there'll be more opportunities to get into that discussion in the next season. The ethics of science, and also we'll probably cover that in the season recap. But I think I have to go for my favorite thing. I think I have to go with the Harvey moments.
Those are pretty good, yeah.
And it just took your head off. It's like in all of this, which is so much and so good and so beautiful, the comic relief was really needed, and especially to have the comic relief of Harvey with the menace and all the other layers that Scorpius is giving us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there we are, folks. We have a new villain. We don't know what has become of Scorpius, so we will be back with Dog with Two Bones.
Well, thank you so much for having me on again.
Yes,
thanks again for joining us.
Really appreciate it. Really appreciate you. And do you want to tell the folks where they can find you?
Absolutely. So my name is Zylla Black. You can find me on YouTube at Zylla's Athenaeum, or on Twitch, Blue Sky, or Mastodon at Zyllable, which is syllable with a Z.
And any project you're working on now?
Oh yeah. Oh boy, I have a lot of projects I'm working on right now, actually. So I just started back on my Twitch streaming, which I do weekly on Saturdays, which is Archeo Gaming, where I play games with ancient studies content and talk about it. I am about to film a video about the board game Dice Forge and its Greek mythological content, which I actually had previously given as a paper at a conference, so that's always fun.
Nice.
I'm working on a huge year-spanning takedown of all of the systematic problems in the U.S. education system called the Ivory Tower. So that's still in the works, and maybe a special collab or two coming up. So there should be plenty to look for.
And Josh, where can folks find you?
I'm just over on Instagram, hanging out, having a good time, at Josh Gosdin. Come on over and hang out with me. It's a good time.
Yeah.
Sara, what about you?
I'm Sara Ezzat. I make the Fat Culture Critic videos. I have finally released my Bridgerton thing, although probably it's been a while now by the time I released this particular episode of the podcast. Yeah, I think I it took longer than I would have liked to have, because it didn't quite catch the wave. But people have been kind in the comments, so that's good. And by the time this comes out, it should probably be time for the release of a new playlist of videos that I have been doing, that I have invited various folks on, including Zylla.
Working on it.
Yeah, the idea of which is why we fight. To have a video, everybody have short videos sort of delving into what fuels their activism or their work, what is their why, and the why we fight for a better, more progressive world. So that should probably be out by the time this comes out. And yeah, if Editing Sara happens to know who is guesting on the next episode of the pod, she will tell you now. Adnan will be joining us once again for Dog with Two Bones.
Thanks, Editing Sara. We appreciate it.
So, with that, thank you for once again, Zylla, for joining us. And we just lost Josh. Okay.
Hi, Josh.
So we'll say goodbye from Josh. So see you later, folks.
Keep learning, friends.
Are we going to see Lieutenant Durrell again?
Yeah, probably not. Oh, Henta was when we got Charbroiled.
Henta, we're definitely not going to see Char. Yeah.